everybody, we're going to be talking now about escaping the mount. And before we get to the individual escapes, because we're going to have a couple of variations for you, we're going to talk about body positioning and how to affect your opponent's alignment when they are on top of you.
So don't skip this one just because it said that. Like, this is the basis for the next 3 videos that we're
without this, you will not be able to do the actual escapes. So, as we've kind of talked about, a lot in literally every single thing we've ever done, is the relationship between Rory and I, the alignment relationship between myself and my opponent really is what we're talking about here, is critical. It's not position before submission, it's alignment before everything. So if Rory is mounting me, but let's say he breaks his own posture, like willingly, and shifts his center of gravity and has poor base, I don't need to do a mount escape. I can just shove him off of me. But we have to assume that my partner is going to have good alignment, he's going to have awareness of his center of gravity, his structure is going to be good, and me just trying to do an escape should not work unless I affect our relative alignments. And even more so, let's say Rory underhooks me and cross faces me. Oh God, my alignment is messed up, and so I should not have a prayer at escaping the position. The first thing I'm going to look to do is set frames to control my partner's hips. We're going to discuss, I know there's somebody who's watching this still and be like, well, he's not talking about punching, so this doesn't work. We'll talk about punches, don't worry about it. My elbow is going to frame my partner's hip. So if I'm using my right arm, I'm placing my right elbow on Rory's left hip, and in the gi you can make grips here, but generally you're just going to cup the far side hip. So my right hand to his right hip, my right elbow to his left hip. This is allowing me to affect his center of gravity when I go to bridge, and we'll talk about the bridging mechanics in a second. Second part of the framing we want to focus on is getting my, in this case, left elbow inside of his knee so that I can support my right forearm with my left hand, creating a scaffold. So if Rory goes to remove this frame, it should not be happening. I should be able to support all of his weight, not just across my forearm and using my humerus with this arm, but also with my left arm underneath. So kind of the same way that if you've seen a bar in a weight room being supported by the struts underneath it, that's what we want.
So Rob's using a C grip with that thumb post there.
Yeah.
If he goes like a monkey grip or anything like that, that's not gonna, he can reinforce with the palm of his hand, but if I can push past it
might slip. So we will use our thumb here occasionally. It's not wrong to do a monkey grip, but if you do, you've got to be watchful that you're really setting the bones of your forearm underneath the bones of your forearm on the other hand, right? And just be careful that that doesn't happen. So there we go. This elbow is framing his knee. I'm trying to make a box, we call it a scaffold, that both supports Rory's hips but also maintains a space between his knees so that I can eventually hip escape out of that space. So create this scaffold, and then the next thing I want to worry about is bridging. If I bridge the way people generally bridge, nothing happens. It's a big old waste of time. It's not wrong to bridge like that. It's just not super useful here. We can bridge like that to escape side control, re-guard, different situations, but not here. Here what I want to look to do, because I'm assuming that he's skilled enough to ride the bridge, he's in control of his center of gravity, so no matter how much I bridge, I'm not going to be able to bring him forward, and what I need to do is get his weight into his hands so I can make his lower half light so that I can get about to controlling it and escaping it. My bridge is going to involve me kneeing him in the back, so I can lift with both feet a little bit and then knee him in the back, or I can just right off the bat lift with one leg and knee him in the back with my other leg. This is what's allowing me to shift his weight forward and create a vulnerability, both in terms of escaping in like pure jiu-jitsu context, but also very important in a striking context. If I'm doing this crap, I'm liable to have him just go right through me. He can do this kind of stuff, armbar me, or just frankly strike me. He can move around my hands, right? Same thing with this. If I sit up and just body lock him, for one, this is all you're liable to have happen to you. For two, if you've seen the shoulder strike type stuff, he can just bounce my head off of the floor pretty much. And again, if you're the in the streets guy, the concrete in the back of your head is not going to be real pleasant. Whereas if he's trying to punch me now, and I can constantly be bumping him, and we're already showing what the escape is going to start to look like. That's what's actually providing me safety in a self-defense scenario. It's my ability to impact his balance, his center of gravity, and force his hands to the mat that's rendering me safe in this scenario, because the mount is a little bit of a foregone conclusion at this point. So if I'm worried about submissions, strikes, anything like that, I need to control his hips, deny him the ability to break my structure and break my posture, and that's what's keeping me safe. So my alignment is fixed, his alignment is broken by this mechanism. If I don't do that, I shouldn't succeed against anyone who knows what they're doing.
And it sucks because we want to have an answer, like we can just hold on to our opponent in some way and be able to stall out. But in this horrible position that Rob's in right now, I have so many options that it sucks to hear that it's like you're going to just have to endlessly keep bridging and disrupting your opponent if you're unable to escape. But that's what you have to do. You have to do this 2 times, 6 times, 10 times, because every time I get back here, my ability to start firing a strong punch, you got to take that away. And then similarly, when it comes to like the gi and stuff, if Rob just sat here and he's like, well, Rob and Rory said that I just sit here and I'm comfortable and I can just start wrapping up here.
Yeah.
The answer is not to bring the hands up and do just static kind of positioning like this. You will have to bring your hands up sometimes to defend, but if I start going like this and Rob bridges, damn it. And then better guys are going to be much better at keeping their balance and still having that fight. But you have to be constantly messing with their alignment or you're just going to end up dying from there.
Exactly.
That bridge is a huge part. That was just a game changer for us, like at the earlier stages. So what Rob's looking to do is create a further extension of his hips there with his knee, and he is just driving the top of his thigh into the back of me. You're not going to be hitting your partner in the spine with this because of like the positioning, so feel free to knee quite aggressively here. It's going to be the top of Rob's thigh here. That just extends that apex of his bridging motion, because especially for me with my height, if Rob bridges right now, it's not going to fucking affect me in any kind of way. But as Rob bridges, and whether it's that 2-foot bridge at the top as he needs me, it hits me higher up, so rather than him bridging into my hips, he starts accessing my spine as a lever slightly here, and that little bit of extra mechanical advantage that he's gaining all of a sudden just sends me flying forward.
Exactly. And then the other part that we need to discuss here is the partial inversion we'll be doing once we achieve this disruption. So we'll give you an angle from here, and then we'll give you an angle of our asses when we do this. So once I get Rory's hands into the mat, I need to start working to get on my side as much as possible. There'll be a couple of escapes I'll be trying to do, but depending on how long my partner's legs are and how much range of motion I need to escape, I may not be able to execute the full escape while staying partially on my side. I will have to occasionally do this half inversion. And you notice what happened when I did that. Rory's left knee came up off of the mat. Right now I'm on my side and I want to escape, but because of the length of Rory's legs, like I've created a taller lateral profile of my hips, which would be great if I was, a much bigger person and Rory was a smaller person. Then one of his legs would be light. But right now, because of his height, there's an equal amount of weight distributed in either of his legs. And so me trying to get out of this space is not going to work. So I need to knee him in the butt again. And even still, not enough space. So I need one of his legs to come off the mat. How I achieve that, once his hands are in the mat, I roll up onto my shoulder and I create this partial inversion. This is where this frame is so critical. If my right elbow goes past his hip, I've given up my back. So I'm framing this leg and I'm framing his hips and trying to get his knee off the ground. It's not always going to be vital that you do this inversion, but when it's important, it's very important. And it will lead to chaining escapes together, which is also going to be a really big deal when we're talking about escaping. So this is the mechanism that I want. Partially inverted, I can have my head on the mat here for additional support and base, and also to deny him access to a lever. If my head is in the air, he can grab it. Oh crap, he can cross face me. If I stick my head on the mat, it's going to be very difficult for him to do that. And then from here, I can go about initiating my escapes. So if I don't have those two mechanisms, the bridge with the knee in the butt and the partial inversion. So let's do it now with from this angle here. So again, I've kneed him in the butt. his legs are still both, or sorry, his knees are still both on the mat. So I begin the process of inverting my hips. And that's what gets his leg in the air. And will either result in an escape for me or will draw a reaction from Rory that will allow me to utilize.
Yeah, Braulio Stema had a great way, like just an analogy of it, where he just talked about the idea of a bicycle where the seat's too high.
There you go.
And
Yeah.
you're forcing me to make a choice where one of my feet or one of my knees is have to make contact. Because with the mount, if I have both my knees just in solid contact with the mat, you're completely boxed in. The floor blocks you at your back, my hips up high, and then the legs on either side. What Rob's goal is to lift his hips as much as necessary to start making me lift one of my knees off the mat, because I'm just not going to be tall enough. And so depending on the opponent you're going up against, you're going to have to lift your hips a bit higher against me versus somebody else, but then also depending on the size of you. So it's always relative, but if you start to lift your hips off the mat, we start to increase your mobility, the space that you're going to be able to recede back into and actually change your angles, but also create more space by lifting your opponent up off the mat. So that elbow is the detail that everyone's always like, you want me to start turning my back to my opponent? It's like, no, that elbow is framing that hip. And if it's not, then you're going to die every time. So that's the key part.
That's literally, that's how I describe it in class. Is like, if without that elbow, you die. That's how you have to think of it. The elbow is what's keeping you safe. The frame is what's keeping you safe. And not just keeping you safe, it's amplifying the effect of everything we're doing, because I'm creating the scaffold that supports Rory's weight, but it also keeps it at my hip level. If I don't have the scaffold, Rory's body will start to drift up into my chest. And so whatever else I'm doing, like if I don't have the frame, for instance, and I do this, and then I do this, like I haven't lifted Rory's knees in any way, even though I've inverted my hips. My hips are way up in the air.
I'm just sliding up with a nice high mount.
Exactly. Both his knees are still on the ground. His alignment is totally unaffected. So I need to keep him at my hip level so that as my hips elevate, his weight is lifted, his center of gravity is under my control. And that's one of our most important concepts, is controlling your opponent's center of gravity and momentum and never allowing your opponent to control yours.
So if it doesn't quite make too much sense yet with that last little bit of inversion, we're going to be talking about that more in the next videos. We talk about the frame and the hip escape.